Hello and welcome back to FEIYUTECH. Today we're gonna take a look at the Fuji X-T200 and the Fuji X-S10. We're gonna see how these two compare. To be honest, it's not a fair comparison because obviously the X-S10 retails for a much higher price. So I'm just gonna go ahead and share with you whatever were my user experiences. I'm gonna list a few advantages. Advantages of the X-T200. Believe it or not, there are some advantages to this camera and advantages of the X-S10. I also want to mention the fact that this video is going to be particularly focused on the video aspect of these two cameras. I'm Aleloy, this is FEIYUTECH. Let's get this video started. When you are in video mode, the X-T200 do not have any sort of control over sharpness, contrast, you cannot control the saturation. I understand that we're working in 8-bit in both these cameras, so it's not that crucial to just film desaturated and then saturate in post, but not being able to control the sharpness at least, this was a deal breaker because this camera, the X-T200, was just too sharp for my liking, so I was not able to control any of it. In camera, and controlling the sharpness in post-production was just difficult. So advantages of the X-S10 is that you do have dedicated controls in video mode. You can just control your sharpness, your noise reduction, your color saturation, your contrast, it's all in there, and also you do get the eternal picture profile. So a much more comprehensive featured camera when it comes to video image quality. You do also get the F-Log in the X-S10, although we're in 8-bit, if you're into that sort of thing, it's there. Also, you get a much more accurate focus controls. In the menus, you can go and really tweak everything you need. You can adjust how fast the camera will autofocus and things like that. There's nothing like that in the X-T200, unfortunately. When it comes to usability, one of the things that I liked the most on the X-S10 was that the dials are set always the same way for pictures and videos. That was very confusing instead in the X-T200 because if you're in picture mode with the X-T200, this left dial will control the film simulation, and then you will have the shutter speed on your right and the aperture on your front dial. But when you are in video mode, this dial becomes the shutter speed. So again, this was film simulation in picture mode. It's very confusing. Then this dial becomes custom dials in video mode, which means it will change according to which menu you are in or which button you press. Once you get used to it, I guess it will not be a deal breaker for some, but I really didn't like it. I prefer cameras that are a bit more straightforward, especially cameras that don't have any labeling at all. So the X-S10 was much more straightforward in terms of that. Now, both these cameras have a USB-C plug and you can charge it over USB-C, but unfortunately the X-T200 does not charge the camera while the camera is on. So this was another advantage to the X-S10, which will allow you to just connect a USB-C cable later on while you're recording, and the camera will be using the USB-C plug. Mind that the battery will still be discharging, but at a very slower pace. Although with the X-T200, I purchased a dummy battery and I was able to just use the dummy battery, connected to the dummy battery, could stay on forever. Now I can get the histogram and the focus peaking in video mode even when I'm recording videos with the X-S10. I cannot do the same in the X-T200. To be precise, you do get the focus peaking feature and you do get the histogram, but by the moment you press that record button, these two things just disappear. Now we said again that the autofocus is actually customizable on the X-S10. You can actually customize the sensitivity of the autofocus, how fast it will track. But not only this, the autofocus seems to be a little bit superior to the X-T200 overall. So just generically, I believe the autofocus is just better on the X-S10. Both these cameras have clean HDMI out, although I've noticed that when I do use the video that is coming out of the HDMI port, I still get the face recognition box of the autofocus from the X-T200, and I do not get that into the X-S10. This means that if you do want to use the video coming out of the HDMI, you need to have this one in manual mode, otherwise you will have this box around your face all the time. It's very weird. It's also offset. I'm pretty sure they will fix this in a further firmware update, but up to date, I'm using the latest firmware update. The face box is there. This is something completely personal, but very important for me. I have a pretty inexpensive gimbal. It's called the FEIYUTECH G6 Plus. Now, although the X-T200 is lighter than the X-S10, I was not able to balance this camera on my gimbal. I suspect that this has to do with the fact that the tripod screw is not in the center, so probably the camera is giving a harder time to my gimbal, but I was able to actually balance the X-S10 on my gimbal, although it was heavier. Same kit lens, 15 to 45 millimeters. So if you're looking for a very cheap gimbal that can work with your X-S10, maybe not 100% perfectly, but it was pretty smooth. If you're interested in that, I'm gonna link one below. And then we have the specs that you all know about. This camera can do a slow motion at a slower rate with 240 frames per second in Full HD, as opposed to the X-T200 that can do 120 frames per second in Full HD. The X-S10 has got in-body stabilization, whether the X-T200 has only got digital stabilizer and the digital gimbal feature, but no in-body physical stabilization. But the biggest advantage for me is that the X-S10 can do 30 minutes in 4K, whether the X-T200 can only do 15 minutes maximum. And that was just a big deal for me. 15 minutes was just not enough. Another advantage of the X-S10 is that it can handle the overheat way better than the X-T200. The X-T200 seems to be overheating quite often, and if you would just leave it on for a while and then you press that record button, then in very few minutes you will not even reach the 15 minutes, and in few minutes, maybe 10 minutes, the camera will just eventually shut down because of overheating. If you're interested, I've done a very specific test of the X-T200, and I'm just gonna link it here or here, I'm still figuring this out, where I go through all the possible combination you may think of, streaming over HDMI, HDMI in standby, recording internally, recording externally, Full HD, 4K recording. So if you're interested in that and see exactly how many minutes can you actually record with the X-T200, well, you may find that video useful. Okay, but what are instead the advantages of the X-T200 over the X-S10? Well, to start off, this camera has a feature that will allow you to trim the videos in the camera, which is incredibly useful if you want to share these videos on a social network. So you can do everything in camera, you don't need to go to your Premiere software or whatever software you use. Pretty handy. I don't know why Fuji didn't implement this on the X-S10. It was amazing, especially for slow motions. Imagine you have like a 10 seconds video, this will become incredibly long due to the slow motion. You can just trim it in the camera. I had a lot of fun doing that. I wish this camera had it as well. The display of this camera is amazing. I mean, everybody's saying the same. This is probably the best display on a mirrorless camera right now, or even DSLR. Apart from Blackmagic and this sort of like huge, massive displays. But if you want to film yourself, I mean, nothing beats this display. It is just bigger, brighter, and better. The X-S10 has got something really annoying when you are just using the flippy screen. It's got all your ports here, which means that your USB cable here will block perfectly your shot, or maybe you have your HDMI cable as well. This will just block the screen. So either you buy angled cables, or just you will deal with some part of the display being blocked. Whether the X-T200 does not have that, you will be able to have your jack connected here and still be able to see most of your shot, and then all the other cables are just connected here on the other side, which makes a lot of sense. Why would you do that, Fuji? I don't know. Both these cameras have a My menu. If you're not familiar with Fuji, it's just a menu that you can customize and put all the features that you want to have at glance, and you can decide pretty much everything you want, but not everything with the X-S10. With the X-T200, I can just put whatever weird option from any menu I want, I can put that into the My menu. The X-S10 is not as customizable. I have in the My menu of the X-T200, add item. So imagine you're into the My menu screen and you remember, oh, I want to add another feature. I have the add item in the My menu, so it's super straightforward to go and add whatever I want and place it there. I cannot do the same with this camera. I don't know why, but there's another advantage of the X-T200. Now this is another very weird thing. I cannot switch the screen off on the X-S10. You would expect that this tiny button that is here next to the viewfinder would just switch between the viewfinder and the monitor, but it does not. This is just a customizable FN button, and you cannot customize it to just switch between the screen and the viewfinder. I mean, this is pretty strange. In the Fuji X-T200 instead, you have just a dedicated button in the same position, and as you would expect, it will allow you to switch between the LCD to the viewfinder, to have it in automatic or have them both off. And if you want to save some battery, maybe you want to have those both off. And if you want to do that with the Fuji X-S10, you need to go and dig into the menu. Somehow very weird. The X-T200 has a feature that will allow you to connect it to your computer using just a USB cable. Just one cable and this camera becomes a webcam. Everybody praised this feature and they will say, oh, you can have just the best webcam you could ever dream of with just one single cable. I tried it and I did not like the feature simply because the camera goes in full auto mode, so you cannot have any sort of control over exposure and autofocus, and often the camera would just hunt for autofocus or just overexpose most of the time in my room. The streaming quality is also 720p and I believe is a very odd frame rate too, so I would not want to use a webcam in that way. I believe a laptop webcam will do a better job, but if you're after simplicity, if you don't have a webcam, better have it than not have this feature. So this camera does not have this feature up to date. Another great feature of the X-T200 is that when you're selecting your film simulations with your left dial, it will allow you to see with a split screen before and after. It's some sort of like a very intuitive way to scroll through the filters, and you can see how the image was before and how it will become if you apply a certain film simulation. I thought it's amazing, and I wish the X-S10 would have the same feature, but it doesn't. So that's it, a hopefully quick video just to share with you whatever are my opinions about these two cameras. I just got them both from a while now and I've been having some fun, honestly, like going around with both of them. But because of the limitations of the X-T200, I went for the X-S10 eventually. And I must admit, I do prefer the X-S10, but obviously this is more money. And it's not got that sort of simplicity that you will have in the X-T200. If you're after a very small camera to shoot some very quick and easy shots for your social network, I believe this camera is unbeatable simply because the trimming feature built in the camera, time-lapse, then you have the film simulation before and after, you have a great screen that you can rely on and it's never gonna be blocked out. It's pretty lightweight, it's something you could chuck into your backpack and carry around with you. This is a great little camera, especially for pictures. The biggest downside for me was the limitation of 15 minutes maximum recording in 4K. But if you're not after that, there is a lot that this camera can offer. You can do a pretty decent slow motion in 120 frames per second full HD. So I really do like this camera, but it was not enough for me. So if you're more into videos, I would definitely recommend you to go spend a little more and get the X-S10 instead. Hopefully this video was useful for you. If it was, don't be shy, press that like button and subscribe if you want to see more. There will be a lot of content about Fuji cameras, but also other things if you're interested in getting better with videos, but also with audio. Well, this is your channel. Just stay around, press that subscribe button. If you will decide to purchase any of these two cameras, I'm just gonna place all the links below. These are affiliate links. I will earn a very small commission out of that, but you will pay exactly the same and this will help the channel immensely. I'm Aleloy, this is Ale Suggests, audio and video suggestions for the creative minds, and I will see you here very soon.